This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, May 1st, only on Netflix.
Ladies, you'll end up shopping for your guy's deodorant, right? So try Degree's Original Cool Rush. You see, last year, Degree changed the formula, and men were mad. One guy even started a petition. So Degree admitted they messed up and brought the Original Cool Rush scent back. It's clean, crisp, and actually smells like someone you want to cuddle. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So toss one in your cart and find out why it's the best-selling men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory.
Welcome back, True Crime Army. I am your host, Margot, and this is Military Murder, a show where I focus on crimes committed by military members and veterans. But don't worry, you don't have to know anything about the military to listen. You just have to be a true crime enthusiast, and if that's you, welcome home. Today's case is one that took place less than a year ago, and when I was watching it unfold in the news, I remember being in complete shock. But as the case played out, I thought it wasn't a case that I would cover or I could cover on the podcast. But then this summer, I got a Google alert that the investigation had been completed with some shocking revelations. So I thought it would be a good case to cover since now I had an actual investigative report to assist in writing this episode. Rest assured that this episode does not include speculation, just information found in the investigative report bolstered by news reports. Join me today as I tell you the story of the deadliest day in Maine. This is the Lewiston, Maine mass shooting. Now, let's dig in.
Military murder is an independent project and is not endorsed by the Department of Defense or any military component. The views expressed are those of the host. The content of this podcast is not meant to be legal or medical advice. Warning, this episode contains graphic details of murder and is not suitable for young listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Today I am taking you to the vibrant and diverse city of Lewiston, Maine, nestled in Androscoggin County and just a stone's throw from the picturesque views of the Androscoggin River. This city is rich in history, culture, and community. Lewiston is the second largest city in Maine with a population of roughly 36,000 residents. It has a unique charm, blending the old with the new. The city's history dates back to 1795, when it was incorporated, and it skyrocketed in growth during the 19th century as a booming mill town, thanks to its location and abundant water power. The remnants of that industrial past are still visible today, with historic buildings and mill complexes adorning the landscape. For families and residents, Lewiston offers plenty of parks, recreational facilities, and community events. And it's with this backdrop that the state experienced deadliest mass shooting in its history on October 25, 2023. At 6 p.m. that day, roughly 60 residents of Lewiston gathered at the Just-in-Time Recreation Center. Among those residents were 20 kids who were there that night for a youth bowling league event. Everyone was enjoying themselves after a day of work and school, when suddenly, outside the building, they had no idea that evil was about to walk straight through the door. At 6:54 p.m., a 40-year-old man drove to the Just-in-Time Rec Center with his white Subaru. He parked in the parking lot and then emerged from the car, and he was armed with a .308 Ruger small-frame auto-loading SFAR rifle, fitted with a scope and a laser targeting device. The man calmly walked into the rec center, passing someone standing outside. As the gunman entered the crowded recreation center, chaos erupted almost immediately. Within just 45 seconds, he managed to fire 18 rounds, resulting in the tragic deaths of 8 people and injuring 3 others. The scene quickly turned from a lively gathering to a scene of horror. In the frenzy, many more were injured while attempting to escape or find hiding spots. Amidst the chaos, 2 courageous customers charged at the shooter in a desperate attempt to disarm him, sacrificing their lives by allowing others the chance to flee and find safety. Their bravery, along with the quick thinking of other patrons, ultimately saved countless lives. One employee risked their own safety by rushing children to a secure area, only to be shot in the process. In a remarkable display of heroism, another customer managed to grab several children, including one with serious injuries, and barricaded them inside a storage closet. Just a minute after he had walked in and started shooting, the gunman exited the recreation center and jumped into his car. Quick thinking, one of the co-owners of the business sprinted to the doors and locked them behind him, effectively preventing the gunman's re-entry. Meanwhile, the dispatch center was inundated with 911 calls from those trapped inside. Just 4 minutes later, the first officers from the Lewiston Police Department and the Androscoggin County Sheriff's Office arrived at the scene, rushing into the building without hesitation. Emergency medical personnel were also dispatched to provide aid. The gunman, undeterred, drove approximately 4 miles to Shemengi's Bar and Grill, arriving at 7:07 p.m. Shemengi's Bar and Grill is what you would expect of a local establishment, except that Shemengi's often engaged with the Lewiston community. And this night was no different, as the bar was hosting their weekly cornhole event for members of the deaf community. And this would be the scene for another massacre. The gunman left his car running in the parking lot as he entered Shemengi's, and over the course of the next 1 minute and 18 seconds, he unleashed a further 36 rounds, killing an additional 10 people and wounding another 10. In an act of bravery reminiscent of those at the recreation center, a bartender at the restaurant grabbed a butcher knife and lunged at the shooter in a futile attempt to stop him. The bartender was also killed, but his actions momentarily distracted the gunman, giving others a split-second opportunity to react. During the onslaught, one brave customer managed to locate the main power switch and cut the electricity to the entire building, plunging the restaurant into pure darkness. This critical act allowed terrified patrons a chance to escape and hide. Only 6 seconds after the power went out, the shooter exited the building, having spent just a minute and a half wreaking havoc after his arrival. The somber aftermath of these events would leave lasting scars on the community as they processed the tragedy that had unfolded before their eyes. The chaos at Shemengi's Bar and Grill escalated further as dispatch received an overwhelming influx of 911 calls, with the first call coming in at 7:08 p.m., just a minute after the gunman entered and began shooting. The urgency of the situation prompted the first 3 responding officers to arrive at the scene by 7:13 p.m., rushing inside to locate the shooter and provide aid to the wounded patrons. Upon evaluating the dire situation, the officers quickly recognized the overwhelming number of injured customers needing immediate medical assistance. Faced with the reality that all ambulances were already occupied at the previous shooting site just in time, the cops here sprang into action. The officers loaded the wounded into their cruisers as well as game warden trucks, urgently transporting the injured to nearby hospitals. A private citizen also stepped forward, flagged down by one of the responders, and took at least one injured individual to the hospital, showcasing the community's outpouring of support and willingness to help in such a crisis. Tragically, 4 members of the deaf community lost their lives during the shooting. Among the survivors, one deaf player was seriously wounded. However, he, along with a hearing friend, managed to escape the chaos. They sought refuge in the woods along the riverbank, where the hearing individual called 911 to inform the dispatch that the victim he was with was deaf, ensuring that authorities understood the unique challenges and providing assistance. As the gravity of the situation continued to unfold, the community rallied together in the face of tragedy, illustrating incredible courage and resilience amid the profound shock of the events that had plagued their beloved gathering places. Recognizing that their gunman was on a rampage, police commenced thorough searches of the bar and grill surrounding woods and river, hoping to maybe find the gunman or maybe additional victims. Meanwhile, survivors from the 2 affected businesses were transported to the Lewiston Armory, where they were met by agents from the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office and the FBI, who began the daunting task of interviewing everyone. Following these interviews, the survivors were relocated to a local school that had been designated as a family reunification center, where efforts were made to reunite them with their loved ones. However, due to the circumstances, not everyone was able to reconnect with their families. As officials became aware of the presence of deaf victims and survivors, they took steps to ensure communication was accessible. An officer who knew American Sign Language, ASL, was assigned to the armory to assist with interpreting, aiming to bridge that gap communication. However, the situation was complicated by the arrival of certified ASL interpreters who, despite their willingness to help, were turned away from both the hospitals and the armory. Their efforts to assist were hindered by several factors: The command staff was initially unaware of the deaf victims, the interpreters lacked official identification, and there was a significant lack of coordination among law enforcement, emergency comm specialists, hospitals, and the interpreters. This unfortunate disconnect exacerbated an already traumatic experience for the deaf community affected by this tragedy. The absence of appropriate communication support only added to the distress and confusion during a time when clear and effective communication was desperately needed. The consequences of the event were not just physical, but also emotional, highlighting the critical importance of inclusivity and communication access in emergency responses to ensure that every individual's needs are met in moments of crisis. What transpired that night would go down in history as the worst mass shooting in the state of Maine, leaving a mark of tragedy and shock that the community would never forget. Today's episode is sponsored by Acorns, and April is Financial Literacy Month, an entire month dedicated to taking control of your money. Because honestly, no one really taught me how to manage money growing up. I didn't learn about investing until I was well into adulthood. But what I love about Acorns is that it makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future in just 5 minutes. I know, April is an entire month, but you don't need an entire month to learn. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns recommends a diversified portfolio that matches you and your goals. You can start with just your spare change, and you don't need a lot of time. Setup takes just 5 minutes because I know that your time is precious. And if financial wellness has ever felt out of reach, Acorns makes it simple, giving your money a chance to grow without the overwhelm. Personally, using Acorns gave me the confidence to stop putting it off and just start. And that peace of mind is completely worth it. Sign up now and join over 14 million all-time customers who've already saved and invested over $25 billion with a B dollars with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/militarymama or download the Acorns app to get started today. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/militarymama.
Good night, itchy eyes. Good night, sudden sneeze. Good night to your symptoms of allergies. Zysol is the allergy medicine you take before bed. It provides powerful relief while you rest your head. Not just all night, but all the next day. Zysol keeps working, keeping allergies at bay. And without those annoying symptoms disturbing your rest, you can wake up the next morning feeling your absolute best. Remember, be wise all. Take Zysol. At night.
In response, law enforcement mobilized an unprecedented number of personnel, with over 400 officers, including 16 tactical teams coming from local, county, state, and even federal agencies, to respond to the chaos unfolding in Lewiston, due to the fact that the gunman was still on the loose. Their efforts were further supplemented by hundreds of emergency comm specialists, emergency medical techs, EMTs, police cadets in training, hospital employees, and the ASL interpreters who arrived to assist the impacted deaf community. The collective response was a testament to the determination and swift action taken to confront a dire situation. In the midst of the turmoil, the Maine Emergency Management Agency, MEMA, issued a shelter-in-place advisory at 7:55 p.m., broadcasting it across all social media platforms. This crucial advisory informed citizens about the active shooter situation and urged everyone to stay indoors, avoid the streets, and report any suspicious activities that they might observe. Now, listen to me. This must be the most terrifying event to consider. I mean, for those of us in the military, we have experienced a lockdown before. But to be chilling at home and near these locations and then told to stay in your house, close the blinds, lock the doors, this person is still on the loose, is just scary. Following this announcement, law enforcement officers sprang into action, responding to numerous reports of possible sightings, strange noises, and suspicious individuals or vehicles. They conducted thorough searches of homes and yards in the vicinity and even checked closed schools and businesses, trying to ensure the safety of the public. At one point, a call came in reporting a suspicious armed individual at the Walmart distribution center. While a command center was established, some officers without immediate assignment chose to self-dispatch to scenes like the distribution center. Although their intentions were commendable, their actions contributed to the overall chaos and resulted in duplication of efforts, confusion, and blocked roads. Despite the confusion, officers quickly organized themselves and conducted a sweep of the distribution center, ultimately determining that the report was a false alarm. However, during this response, several officers encountered an armed private citizen who had taken it upon himself to go to the distribution center and, quote, find the shooter, adding yet an additional layer of complexity to an already chaotic environment. In addition to the Walmart call, there were 2 other significant false reports claiming that an active shooter was present at another restaurant and that an armed man had been spotted on a neighboring street. These 3 unfounded calls consumed many law enforcement resources, tying up dozens of officers and potentially delaying the crucial search for the actual gunman. As the community faced the aftermath of the shooting, it became evident that false reports not only added to the immediate challenges faced by law enforcement, but also underscored the critical importance of accurate information in times of crisis. At 9:20 p.m., a pivotal development occurred when members of the gunman's family contacted the Lewiston Police Department to identify the man from the video footage released following the shooting at Just in Time. The call came from 2 key family members, Nicole Hurling, the shooter's sister, and Kara Lamb, the shooter's ex-wife. Their prompt action provided law enforcement with the crucial information they needed, allowing police to verify the shooter's identity using his vehicle registration and driver's license details. The name of the shooter, Robert Card II, was quickly broadcast to all law enforcement officers in the area. Authorities immediately shifted their focus to gather as much information as they could about Card, a resident of nearby Bowdoin, Maine. They soon discovered that Card was a sergeant first class in the Army Reserve, which raised additional concerns regarding his military background and access to firearms. As law enforcement intensified their search efforts, they contacted Card's cell phone provider to track the location of his phone. And within a miraculous mere 16 minutes of identifying him, police learned that Card's phone was located at his home in Bowdoin. However, the data indicated that it had not moved since 6:05 p.m., approximately an hour before he had entered Just in Time. Through interviews with Card's family members and fellow Army Reserve members, authorities gathered valuable insights regarding Card's firearm collection. They also learned about his mental health status and potential destinations. This information became crucial in understanding both Card's state of mind and his possible next moves. Just before 10 p.m., members of the Lisbon Police Department spotted a white Subaru abandoned at a boat launch approximately 7 miles away from Lewiston. Upon verifying that it belonged to Card, the command center instructed the officers to stay back due to a lack of protective gear, ensuring their safety, while a tactical unit from the Maine State Patrol was dispatched to the boat launch to secure the area. With law enforcement zeroing in on Card's possible whereabouts, the urgency to locate him and prevent further tragedy continued to mount as the night unfolded. 37 minutes after arriving at the boat launch, law enforcement confirmed that Robert Card was not inside his vehicle. However, they did make a concerning discovery inside: a Ruger rifle still loaded with 15 live rounds, including 1 in the chamber, alongside 5 additional magazines containing a total of 63 .308 cartridges. Despite searching the vehicle thoroughly, no evidence emerged that could indicate Card's whereabouts, leaving investigators at a standstill. Simultaneously, a law enforcement sensitive bulletin was issued, officially naming Card as the suspect in the active shooter incidents. Such bulletins are supposed to remain confidential and distributed exclusively through official law enforcement communication channels. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for the bulletin to be leaked to the press. Minutes later, Card's name and photographs spread rapidly across social media and were featured on the local, state, national, and even international news platforms. While some might argue that publicizing his identity would aid the search, the Maine State Police cautioned that leaking sensitive information could jeopardize the safety of witnesses, investigators, and officers responding to the situation. Throughout the night, 2 Lisbon police officers conducting a sweep of the overflow trailer parking lot at Maine Recycling began inspecting the trailers. However, realizing that they lacked sufficient light and protective equipment, they stopped searching individual trailers after a visual sweep yielded no significant findings. Their police chief informed a state trooper about the brief search and the existence of the lot, while the recycling center's manager and Card's brother, Ryan, also alerted the state police regarding the location. However, this vital information was not relayed to the commander leading the manhunt, creating a gap in the search efforts. Amidst these developments, the first press conference took place, yet it notably lacked an ASL interpreter on screen. It was unclear if one was present at all, but this absence heightened frustrations within the deaf community, particularly since 4 members of their community had been killed and several others had been injured. During this time, Card's vehicle was towed to the State Police Crime Lab in Augusta, where it was held pending a search warrant. Meanwhile, patrols continued their extensive searches in the area, complemented by a New Hampshire State Patrol helicopter equipped with night vision, which scoured the surrounding areas for any sign of Card. As the situation escalated, the following day, Thursday, October 26, a shelter-in-place advisory was expanded to encompass Bowdoin, Lisbon, Lewiston, and all of Androscoggin County, as well as northern Sagadahoc County. In response to this escalation in safety measures, over 30 school districts decided to close their schools, reflecting the heightened sense of urgency and caution gripping the area as the search for Card continued. As the investigation progressed, forensic teams meticulously processed the crime scenes. Inside just in time, they recovered a total of 18 .308 caliber cartridge casings, 4 live .308 caliber cartridges, numerous bullets and bullet fragments, and a 25-round capacity magazine containing 22 live rounds. At Chemenges, the teams found 36 fired .308 cartridge casings, 1 empty 25-round magazine, as well as additional bullets and bullet fragments scattered both inside and outside the establishment. Following a thorough review by a district court judge, an arrest warrant was issued for Robert Card, charging him with 18 counts of murder. This warrant was promptly entered into a national database for wanted persons, intensifying the search efforts for Card.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities, so do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
On the morning of Thursday, October 25th at 10:30 a.m., a second press conference was held where ASL interpreters were provided, ensuring better accessibility for the deaf community, which had faced considerable challenges throughout this crisis. As the day unfolded, additional warrants were drafted, reviewed, and issued, allowing law enforcement to conduct searches of Card's home, suspected hiding locations, and even his abandoned vehicle. Consent searches took place at Card's workplaces, empty businesses, and the homes of potential witnesses and neighbors, demonstrating a widespread effort to gather intel. In the afternoon, another investigative briefing was held, where Maine State Police shared sensitive information related to the ongoing investigation and the results of recent searches. However, once again, information was leaked to the press during this briefing. Due to these leaks, subsequent updates were limited and officials issued specific orders to maintain confidentiality. The information shared was strictly for law enforcement eyes only. Unfortunately, some of the leaked information included the contents of a note found at Card's house, which stirred significant distress among survivors and the families of the victims. By Friday, October 27th, the investigation was in its third day. Another press conference was conducted, again with ASL interpreters, and operational briefings continued throughout the day. Late that afternoon, the Maine State Patrol sent teams to search the trailers and the overflow lot at the Maine Recycling Center in Lisbon. You remember, the ones that had not been thoroughly examined. And well, at 7:40 p.m., as patrols searched the 55th and final trailer on their list, they made an important discovery. They found Robert Card's body. He had succumbed to a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head from a Smith & Wesson MP40 caliber handgun. Alongside his body, investigators found 45 live .40 caliber rounds in 3 magazines and a Smith & Wesson MP15 5.56 rifle, which contained 242 live rounds in 8 magazines. This discovery marked the end of the search for the gunman, but the investigation into what happened and why it happened was just beginning. For now, the shelter-in-place order could be lifted. Another press conference was held at 10 p.m. on the evening of October 27th, announcing that the search for Robert Card had officially concluded with the discovery of his body. Unfortunately, no viable information was found inside of this trailer, and due to the cold temperatures, the medical examiner could not determine Robert Card's precise time of death. Investigators were also unable to trace Card's route from the boat launch where he had abandoned his car to the recycling center. They confirmed, however, that he did not return to his home or any relatives' houses, as I mentioned earlier, after the shootings. Maine Governor Janet T. Mills released a heartfelt statement expressing her solidarity with the grieving community. Quote, "I know that the people of Lewiston are enduring immeasurable pain. I wish I could take that pain from you, but I promise you this, we will all help you carry this grief. I ask Maine people to join me in offering our comfort to the families and friends who have lost someone, and in offering our prayers for a swift recovery to the people who are healing in Maine's hospitals today." End quote. In the wake of the tragedy, immense support began flooding into Lewiston, aimed at assisting the victims' families, survivors, and those affected by this event. Victim Witness Advocates, VWAs, were mobilized to provide much-needed assistance. Kara Cookson, Maine's Director of Victim Services and Victim Witness Advocate Coordinator, received word of the shooting just after 7 p.m. while attending a prosecutor's conference. Recognizing the overwhelming need for support far exceeded her available resources, so Kara quickly requested assistance from the FBI Victim Service Response Team. The FBI dispatched an additional 50 specialists in various roles, including direct victim services and ASL interpretation, along with personnel designated to catalog and return personal belongings left behind at the crime scenes. Each time a death notification was made, victim witness advocates were on hand to contact the families and provide essential support services, such as aid with victim compensation applications, gift cards for immediate needs, psychological and spiritual care, and even legal assistance. Additionally, therapy dogs from the FBI and the Harvard, Massachusetts PD were provided to comfort the grieving families during this traumatic time. In response to mass casualty events like the shootings in Lewiston, a family assistance center is typically established to facilitate support. However, in this case, because Card was still at large for 48 hours following the incident, officials opted to avoid large gatherings of people. Once Card's body was found in the recycling center trailer, the victim witness advocates worked diligently to notify as many victims and survivors as possible before any public announcements were made. Unfortunately, once again, information was leaked to the press and some victims learned about the discovery through social media and unconfirmed news reports, adding to the distress of the situation. Once the Family Assistance Center opened its doors, 2 significant American organizations, the Salvation Army and the Red Cross, stepped in to provide 3 meals a day for all visitors, as well as coordinating additional services and financial assistance. The Maine Association for the Deaf and Disability Rights Maine swiftly developed systems to ensure effective communication with members of the deaf community affected by this tragedy. A separate center was also established for community members not directly involved in the shootings but still in need of support. To maintain the safety and privacy of those seeking assistance, the press was banned from both locations. The Family Assistance Center operated for 6 days before transitioning it to the Maine Resiliency Center on November 13th, which remains operational today. On their website, the Maine Resiliency Center describes its purpose, quote, "The Maine Resiliency Center is a resource hub for anyone impacted by the October 25th shootings at Just in Time and Shemengi's Bar and Grill. This includes family, friends, and loved ones of individuals killed on October 25th, anyone present at either of the shootings, first responders and medical personnel, and any member of the community who feels impacted by these events." End quote. As of July 31st, 2024, the Victim Compensation Program has received 114 applications from families of deceased victims, individuals with gunshot wounds, and those with psychological or physical injuries related to the shootings. They reimburse families up to $12,000 for each funeral incurred. In addition, a separate fund, the Maine Mass Violence Care Fund, was established with $5 million allocated for out-of-pocket physical and mental health care costs not covered by insurance. Donations poured in from across the country, creating two primary funds. The #OneLewiston Fund, which was set up to assist with immediate unpaid bills and to create a lasting memorial, and then there was the Lewiston-Auburn Area Response Fund. The latter funds were collected from 5,241 donations worldwide, totaling $6.6 million, which were then distributed to the 29 nonprofit organizations and 162 individuals in the Lewiston-Auburn area, ensuring continued support for those affected by this tragic event. The victims of the tragic shooting at Just in Time Recreation and Shemengi's Bar and Grill were not only individuals whose lives were cut short, but also beloved family members, family, and community anchors whose legacies continue to resonate deeply with those who knew them. As you know, if you've listened to my podcast for long enough, you know that I like to talk about the victims in these cases because I feel like sometimes who they were is forgotten when the tragedy is discussed. So I'm going to start first with the victims of Just in Time Recreation. Robert Bob Violette, 76, and his wife Lucille Lucy Violette, 73, were at Just in Time on October 25th for their regular bowling practice. Bob, a U.S. Navy veteran and retired mechanic from Sears, was known for his passion for bowling. His love for the sport was so profound that friends would joke about his whereabouts. They would say, quote, "If you're looking for Bob, he's probably at the bowling alley," end quote. He volunteered as a coach for the Youth Bowling League and participated in both a men's league and a couples league with his wife, Lucy. Lucy, who dedicated 25 years to the Lewiston Public Schools as a secretary, continued working beyond her retirement eligibility because she cherished her job and the connections with her coworkers. Their legacy lives on through the Bob and Lucy Violette Bowling Foundation, which supports youth bowlers through scholarships and Try Me Days, giving children the opportunity to experience bowling for free. Tricia Asselin, 53, was a vibrant New England sports fan who passionately supported the Patriots, Bruins, and Celtics. Known for her competitive spirit, she was not only an avid bowler but also enjoyed fishing, playing softball, and golfing. As a single mom, Trish worked multiple jobs at Just in Time and the golf course to support her son, earning a reputation for her dedication to helping others. After the Boston Marathon bombing, she had even walked the route in solidarity, embodying resilience and strength in the face of terror. Trish was survived by her son, granddaughter, mother, and 5 siblings. Her family fondly remembered her as a, quote, "great person, mother, sister, and the best friend you'll ever have," end quote. Thomas Tommy Ryan Conrad, 34, was the manager of Just in Time, known for his devotion to his work and dedication to youth bowlers. A fan of New England sports, he particularly cherished his time spent with his daughters, whom he described as his everything. On the night of October 25th, he exhibited extraordinary bravery by charging at the shooter, giving other patrons, including survivor Janet Gabry and her children, a chance to escape. Tommy had served as a combat engineer in the U.S. Army, a role that likely shaped his instinct to act in an emergency. He left behind his daughter, mother, father, stepmother, sister, and an aunt who loved him dearly. William Bill Young, 44, and his 14-year-old son Aaron were at Just in Time together, with Aaron participating in the Youth Bowling League that night. Bill, a U.S. Air Force veteran and auto mechanic, was known for his infectious laugh and enjoyment of family time, particularly watching wrestling with his son Aaron. The two were inseparable, and Aaron considered his father a hero. Their memorial service at Hope Baptist Church was attended by over 200 people who celebrated Bill as, quote, "a big man with a big heart and a big sense of humor," end quote. Aaron, a kind and thoughtful young man, also enjoyed golfing, bowling, and playing video games. They are survived by Bill's wife and Aaron's mother, Bill's 2 daughters, and Aaron's 2 sisters, and extended family who continue to cherish their memories. Michael Mike Deslauriers, 51, was at Just in Time with his lifelong best friend Jason Walker, also 51. Together with their families, they enjoyed bowling in a league. When the shooting began, both men took action to ensure the safety of their wives and children before charging at the shooter, a brave sacrifice that allowed many others to escape. Jason, a veteran of the Maine National Guard, was known for his selflessness and dedication to his family. Mike, known affectionately as Mikey, was famed for his humor and relentless sarcasm, which endeared him to many. He worked for 30 years as a network engineer at a hospital before transitioning to a tech company. Both Mike and Jason are remembered for their contributions to their families and communities, and their legacies live on through their loved ones.
Hathaway presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy! Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Hathaway! Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner, by knockout, is Hathaway! Hathaway, bring it on!
Now I would like to remember the victims of the shooting at Shemengi's Bar and Grill. Joseph Joe Walker, the 40-year-old manager of Shemengi's, had held his position for approximately 6 years, a job he was passionate about. His father remarked, quote, "He loves it. That's why he took the job," end quote. Joe thrived in creating a vibrant atmosphere at the bar, especially during events like Cornhole Night, which drew very large crowds. Known for his generosity and kindness, he often went out of his way to help others. On the evening of October 25th, he displayed remarkable bravery by grabbing a butcher's knife and rushing the shooter in an attempt to save others, a selfless act that ultimately cost him his life. Joe left behind his wife, 2 sons, 3 daughters, grandchildren, and a close-knit family that included his family, stepmom, stepdad, and 4 brothers. Arthur Strout, 42, was known for his infectious giggle and kindness. He was at Shemengi's that night to play pool, which he loved passionately. Artie's friends described him as having a, quote, contagious, recognizable, ridiculously goofy giggle, end quote, making him a complete joy to be around. A devoted family man, he enjoyed spending time with his loved ones, particularly his blended family of 5. His widow was deeply moved by the outpouring of love displayed at his funeral, which was attended by hundreds. His ashes were placed in a black urn adorned with crossed pool cues, symbolizing his passion for the game he loved. Artie is survived by his wife and 5 children, his parents and step-parents, as well as 10 siblings and dozens of aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews. Joshua "Josh" Seal was one of the 4 members of the deaf community who lost their lives at Shemengi's. He was there to play cornhole with his buddies. Josh was a well-recognized face in Maine as he had been the ASL interpreter for televised briefings during the COVID-19 pandemic. Josh showed his love for children and community when he established a summer camp for deaf kids in Maine. Before the camp was open, the only options for deaf kids were to go to camp out of state. Josh met his wife, the love of his life, when they were in preschool, but they lost touch after they attended different schools later in life, and they were reintroduced in high school and moved together to go to college in Texas. When his wife, who is also deaf, got pregnant with their first child, they moved back home to Maine. Josh finished his degree in linguistics with a concentration in ASL English interpreting from the University of Southern Maine. Josh and his wife went on to have 4 kids in total, all of whom are also deaf. Josh had recently started a new position with Pine Tree Society as their Director of Interpreting Services. Pine Tree is a nonprofit organization that serves Mainers with disabilities. His boss noted that his passing left a gigantic hole in the deaf community in Maine, stating, quote, he was committed to breaking the cycle of isolation and creating safe space for deaf people, end quote. Josh left behind his wife of 14 years and their 4 children, his parents, 3 siblings, his grandparents, and many more aunts, uncles, nieces, and cousins. In lieu of flowers, his family asked for contributions to the deaf camp that Josh had established, the Camp Durango Experience. Ronald Morin, 55, who went by Ron or Ronnie, was known for his sense of humor, especially his knack for telling dad jokes. He worked for Coca-Cola and was counting down the days until retirement, hoping to spend more time with his 2 grown children who lived out of state. Active in sports, Ron played ice and floor hockey and loved cornhole, frequently mentoring kids in the sport. In June of 2024, the city of Lewiston renamed a softball complex after Ron. He is survived by his wife, 2 adult children, 7 siblings, and a large network of family and friends. Steve Vozzella was 45 years old when he lost his life. He was at the bar and grill with his good friend Josh Seal for the New England Deaf Cornhole League and is the second of 4 deaf victims that were killed on October 25th. Steve was getting ready to celebrate his first wedding anniversary in November. He and his wife had a daughter and had been together for 14 years, but had just recently tied the knot the year before. The couple were close with both Josh and his wife, and the foursome camped, went to Patriots games, and even rode snowmobiles together. Besides cornhole, Steve had been an avid bowler and had been a member of a league for about 14 years. He also played softball with the National Softball Association for the Deaf, but a knee injury made him stop playing 8 years prior. Steve worked for the U.S. Post Office as a letter carrier for the better part of 20 years. He was a member of the New England Deaf Biker Group. Like all of the other victims, Steve was a huge New England Patriots, Boston Bruins, Celtics, and Red Sox fan. Steve left behind his wife, their daughter, and a son, 3 siblings that include his twin brother, aunts, uncles, his in-laws, nieces, and nephews, and his best friends, 2 of which were survivors of the shooting. His obituary closed with, quote, "Steve's presence, humor, and love will be missed by his family and deaf community," end quote. 64-year-old Keith Macneir wasn't even from Maine. The retiree was from Florida and was in Lewiston visiting his son not long after he had his birthday. He picked up a bag of stone crabs fresh off a boat before he got on the plane to bring to his son so that they could celebrate Keith's birthday together. This was something the father and son did routinely. Keith and his son spent both birthday and holidays together. Keith grew up in Fort Lauderdale in the Rio Vista area with 3 brothers. After working as an architect like his father had done, Keith decided to take a job with the National Park Service on St. John in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Keith would end up staying with the NPS Virgin Islands National Park and the Virgin Islands Coral Reef National Monument as a supervisory facilities and operations specialist for 10 years before he ultimately retired in 2020. Keith enjoyed skeet shooting, boating, and fishing. According to one of his brothers, he was a, quote, devoted, loving father, one of the best brothers in the world, a big-hearted person that's there to help anyone any way he could, end quote. That night, his son had a union meeting to go to and left his dad at Schemengees and planned on coming back to hang out with his dad after his meeting was finished with some of his friends from work. Keith was honored with a celebration of life in Florida after his remains were returned home. His ashes were scattered during a burial at sea off the coast of Fort Lauderdale. I am sorry, but I was unable to find an obituary for him. What we do know is that he was survived by his son and at least one of his brothers. 41-year-old Bryan Michael MacFarlane was originally from Slidell, Louisiana, but grew up in the Portland, Maine area where he attended the government Baxter School for the Deaf. Bryan is the 3rd member of the deaf community that was killed at Schemengees. After he graduated from high school, Bryan lived in Vermont, Ohio, and North Carolina before moving back to Maine in 2022. As a child, Bryan gained a stepbrother, and despite Bryan, who was 9 at the time, not being able to read lips and his stepbrother not being able to sign, they figured out how to communicate and rode their bikes and played together all around Portland. Bryan even taught his stepbrother how to play Monopoly. Bryan was extremely proud of something that he was the first in the state of Vermont to do. He was able to obtain a commercial driver's license, or CDL, and not only did Bryan hold the prestige of being the first deaf person in Vermont to achieve this, but he was one of very few deaf people in the entire country to hold a CDL. He worked as a truck driver for several years, but came back to Maine to be closer to his mom. When he drove his routes, his dog M&M, named after Bryan's favorite candy, would ride with him. In his spare time, Bryan rode motorcycles, he loved to camp, fish, and hang out with his deaf friends. That's what Bryan was doing on the night of the shooting at Schemengees, hanging out with 8 others playing in the Cornhole League. After stopping by his mom's, Bryan and 3 of his friends on the American Deaf Cornhole team were killed together, unable to hear the danger when the shooting began. Bryan was survived by his mother, stepfather, his sister, a stepsister, and his stepbrother, along with his nieces and nephews. His sister posted a thanks to her Facebook page stating, quote, "Life is too short. Hug your loved ones and say, ILY, I love you, as often as possible," end quote. The family established a GoFundMe page to collect funds to cover his funeral costs and to create a scholarship in Bryan's name for a deaf student in Maine. Maxx Hathaway was 35 years old and had just received his college diploma the day of the shooting. Max was a stay-at-home dad to his 2 daughters while he finished up his Bachelor's of Science degree in Business Administration and Finance from the University of Southern Maine. Max and his wife were also expecting a 3rd daughter who was born in December 2023. Known for being goofy and loving to make jokes, Max sported a t-shirt that said, quote, "You don't scare me. I have 3 daughters and a wife," end quote. He was also very down to earth, and people said he always had a positive attitude. Growing up, Max played basketball, soccer, and football while attending Lisbon Falls High School. As an adult, Max loved anime, gaming, and he loved to play pool. Above all else, Max loved his family and was a wonderful father to his girls. His happiest days were with his wife and 2 daughters while they awaited the birth of their 3rd daughter. Max was survived by his wife and 3 daughters, his father, mother, and her partner, 2 sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, and many dear friends. 40-year-old Peyton Brewer-Ross was the father of a toddler and reportedly a changed man after his daughter came into his life. When he and his fiancée learned that they were having a girl, Peyton told his friends, quote, "I'm going to make sure I give her my best and help her grow up to be a good woman," end quote. Peyton stood out in a crowd. He loved wrestling and had a red Randy Macho Man Savage jacket. It was cheetah print with red and yellow fringe on the arms, and Peyton wore it everywhere, to include the day his daughter was born, where he's pictured wearing it in the hospital while he held her. He even asked his fiancée if he could wear it to the wedding. Peyton loves Superman too and had an amazing Superman tattoo sleeve on one arm that is described as being a really beautiful piece of art. Peyton was a larger-than-life character known for being a great storyteller and for having the ability to make you feel like you've known him forever, even if you had just met him. If you needed help, according to everyone, Peyton would drop everything to come help out. Since graduating from high school, Peyton had several different jobs. He was described as being a hardworking man. In 2018, Peyton decided to take his career in a different direction. He enrolled in a very rigorous pipe-fitting apprenticeship program and graduated in 2022 while at the same time being awarded an associate's degree from Maine Maritime Academy. The program started with just 3 people training to be pipe fitters, and by the end, Peyton was the last man standing. He was so determined to finish the program that he got to work early to get in extra study time. Even after losing his mom during his training, Peyton stayed focused and completed the program. The previous July, he texted his friends a video of him walking with the baby in a carrier strapped to his chest. The caption read, quote, "I love being a dad," end quote. Peyton even tried to teach his baby how to play one of his favorite games, cornhole. That's what he was doing at Shemengi's on the night of the shooting. While it was one of his favorite pastimes, his brother said that Peyton had been talking about cutting back on tournaments so that he could spend more time with his fiancée and daughter. His car had been in the shop and he got it back just hours before the tournament at Shemengi's, and he just decided to go that night. Peyton played a game with his daughter every night at bedtime where his fiancée and their daughter would stand at the top of the stairs and call down saying, "Daddy, where are you?" Now the baby calls for him and he doesn't pop out, and she doesn't understand why. Peyton's family has a box where they collect stories about Peyton for his daughter to read when she's older so that she can see how many people loved him. Peyton is survived by his fiancée, who had been with him for 15 years, their daughter, 1 sister, 3 brothers, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and cousins. His obituary also listed 2 close friends who were special in Peyton's life. William Billy Frank Brackett was 48 and was a husband and a father. He is the 4th member of the deaf community killed at Shemengi's during the cornhole tournament. He was born in Ohio but moved to Maine, where Billy spent his youth as a star athlete playing basketball, baseball, and he even played goalie in soccer. He graduated from Governor Baxter School for the Deaf and was a package handler with FedEx. Because of his hearing loss, Billy couldn't speak very well, giving him the nickname of the Silent Giant. Billy loved to play cornhole and darts. He was also a fisherman and loved hunting. He was looking forward to teaching his daughter all the things he loved to do when she got a little bit older. Still a relative newlywed, Billy and his wife had only been married for 3 years, and their daughter was just 2.5 years old. Billy's daughter was also deaf. A GoFundMe was established to pay for the funeral expenses and to buy hearing aids and other equipment that the daughter would need in the future. Billy is survived by his wife and daughter, 2 brothers and a sister, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and cousins who will miss him dearly. Along with many other victims, Billy's obituary also listed several close friends that were dear to him. He was known as a friend to many. In the wake of the shooting, those left behind are not just mourning the loss of their loved ones, they are also advocating for change and support in honor of the victims. As the community comes to terms with this horrific event, the memories of those who lost their lives continue to inspire resilience and unity among the survivors and their families. We are going on a year since these tragic shootings, and while I thought the focus was only on the victims, it turned out that behind the scenes, the investigation into what could have led an Army reservist to commit such a crime continued. As I mentioned earlier, Myrtle and I reviewed the investigative report, which was recently released, and I have so much more to tell you about this case. But I will bring all of that to you next time on Military Murder. If you are ever in crisis and need help, you can receive free and confidential emotional support at 988lifeline.org, or you can dial 988 to connect to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Veterans can press 1 to reach Veteran Services. Help is available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I want to give a huge shout out to Myrtle. She is not only a member of the True Crime Army, but over the last 4 years, she has become one of my dearest friends. Myrtle loves this podcast so much that she endures all of my crazy, and she even researches and writes for the podcast. She wrote and researched this episode in particular. So I just want to say thank you, Myrtle. Also, I haven't talked about my summer much on the podcast, although if you follow my personal Instagram account, Military Margot, I do speak about it. But I just wanted to let you know that Myrtle came to my house this summer and stayed for 2 weeks, helping me recover from surgery. Oh, even though the first week was rough, we had a blast once I was mobile-ish, watching true crime shows, playing Hunt-A-Killer, and even baking banana bread. Okay, so thank you all for tuning in today. Shout out to Myrtle, as always. The sources for this episode include a report from the State of Maine Independent Commission, News Center Maine, Dignity Memorial, Facebook, Legacy.com, articles in the Sun Journal, Central Maine, the Portland Press Journal, Portland Press Herald, Local10.com, GoFundMe, WBUR, The Times Record, and WMTW 8. Military Murder was created by Mama Margot Productions. The music was created by Ty-Ops. Until next time, remember, you never really know what someone is capable of, so remain vigilant always. You have a fabulous week, and I'll keep digging to bring you the rest of this military murder story next week.
Mama's working on her podcast. I don't want to.